Joe Banana is back, and he has brought another book and some other wonderful recipes.
No one has to be able to eat and run like a firefighter, but a fast-paced life is no reason not to eat healthy. So now there's the Healthy Firehouse Cookbook.
Well, that never gets old. Welcome to the latest episode of American Firehouse Cuisine. Today I'm going to make another dessert recipe. Last time we did bread pudding. This time I'm going to do one of my favorites when I was growing up in the Bronx. My mother used to make for me tapioca. Very interesting recipe and very simple. 5 ingredients. Have them all laid out over here. The only trick is when you're going to boil this, you have to do it on medium. So the first thing that you do, and we can actually make it a one-pot situation, is mix the ingredients go in first. And tapioca, I'm going to talk a little bit about tapioca while this is going on. So you need 2 3/4 cup of milk, 1/3 cup of sugar, 1/3 cup tapioca, and the vanilla extract you save till the end, and 1 whole egg. Now tapioca is sort of like a rice. It's going to plump up and absorb the flavor of whatever it is that you're cooking. So what we do with this is you just whisk the egg and the sugar and the tapioca together, like this. Now what you really want to do is just get it to where it's going to sit for about 5 minutes. Just like that. Take a quick look at the clock for 5 minutes. We set that aside. We let that rest for 5 minutes. Let some of the tapioca start to absorb into the sugar and the milk. So what we have here is, I have a completed dish already, and this one we're gonna put on. So this goes on medium, but this was cooking already, just to show you what it does. And we have the overhead camera, finally have that hooked up. We had some technical difficulties trying to set all this up, but so what you're doing here, and you can see, is that you're bringing this to a boil. And this is the only tricky part of this recipe. This is so easy, right? You put your 4 ingredients here, you got 1 left. You have vanilla extract. You get that for 5 minutes, you let it set. You put it on here on medium to low heat. Now it takes about 20 minutes for it to start to thicken. It'll thicken as it starts to boil. So what you want to do is to bring this to a boil, but it has to be on medium to low, or else you're going to scald the milk. It takes about 15-20 minutes, and you have to stir constantly. And this is another tip, cooking tip actually. We'll take this one down. Especially this dish in particular. Get yourself any of the cookware that has really thin bottoms, really not good. I prefer a copper bottom, but this one has an aluminum, and I think it's copper lined. But preferably copper. Actually, Macy's Tools of the Trade, who I did some demonstrations for, they had an excellent Belgique, was pure copper bottom. But and that's what these have on it, because if it's too thin on the bottom, especially if you're making rice, or in particular this dish, tapioca, it'll start to burn the milk on the bottom. It'll get black and it'll be ruined. So now if I think we have the overhead working, and you can see, and I'll try to put this in here even if we can't get the overhead working. You can see on medium, and when you stir it and let it go, it should still bloop, bloop, bloop bubble, which is what it's doing. And as soon as it does that, you're done, and you can shut it off. Take it off the heat. That's when you add your vanilla extract. And then you whisk that in. And now that is going to go, that goes into a separate pot or bowl. That all cleaned out. Get that into a separate pot or a bowl. And then, now the directions will say if you don't want it to have a skin on the top of it when it goes into the refrigerator and make it a little more moist, you can actually cover it with saran wrap or press and seal and put it in the refrigerator like that, and in about 15 minutes it'll be ready to eat warm. One of the things I liked about tapioca is the longer it sits, the better it tastes. It's one of those things, the longer it sits, the better it tastes. So we have leave this for 5 minutes. This is what we did above. And let me talk a little bit about tapioca. Interesting kind of a ingredient here. They have a few different types of cookable pudding type tapiocas. They have the large pearl, which I've made before. I don't really like the consistency of it. You have to actually soak the pearls. And this is basically the one I've used all the time, which is basic minute tapioca. It's the same tapioca, it's not processed any differently. And it just seems to taste much better this way, cooked this way. It's not as thick in your mouth. It's almost like a rice pudding, but it's 10 times more flavorful than rice pudding. So let me talk a little bit about tapioca and what it actually is. This is actually what tapioca looks like. It's a tuber, sort of like a sweet potato or a regular potato. It grows underground. Africa, Thailand, and Indonesia, the 3 biggest producers, and Taiwan also. And actually the biggest importer of tapioca, the little tapioca kernels, is Thailand. They send out over 1 million pounds a month of tapioca. And it's a really interesting, it's not a herb, it's a root actually, a tuber. It's actually an interesting tuber or root type of thing. One of the things that, believe it or not, they make out of it is cyanide poison. So don't get it in your head that you can buy tapioca root at the store. Manioc root is another name for it, and shred it yourself with a cheese grater and make your own tapioca. It has to be processed properly to get the cyanide out of it, and then they dry it. There's so many different things they use it in. They use it in animal feed. It's a great thickener for pies. Like unlike cornstarch or flour, where you have to cook it first, you can put it in as it is, and it'll thicken pies, it'll thicken gravies, it'll thicken soups. It's good for that. And I've actually read that they, the byproduct of the fibers of it, they're able to make biodegradable, for the environment, biodegradable linens, bags, plates, cups, and throw them away, and they just get. And another thing I think the manufacturers and harvesters of tapioca particularly like is that it doesn't attract a lot of bugs. They don't get a lot of microbes in it. When it's dried in this form, this is the form that it comes in. I'll show you. It's little pieces like that, smaller than rice actually, and really, really delicious. So have I actually made this in a firehouse is what you're going to ask, and I'm sure there's a few firefighters out there that I work with who say, he never made tapioca once. I actually did make it once in Engine 319 when I was a probationary fireman. I made it once. It was a small firehouse in Middle Village, Queens. Very quiet, older gentlemen working there, or older firefighters working there, and had a lot of time on their hands. So that one I particularly liked making a dessert. We generally don't make dessert in a firehouse. It's generally the main meal, but there were other talented firefighters at the time, they would make it. So I have made this once or twice in Engine 319, never in ladder 129, never in ladder 152, but it's something I always wanted to make, but we were too busy with the regular meal, and once I transferred out of Engine 319, we were a little too busy to be making desserts. So anyway, here it is. Here's what the finished tapioca kind of looks like. And again, I had this in the refrigerator at home. You can see I actually had some of it. And you can see it gets a skin on it like that, which doesn't taste bad or it isn't. Just some people don't prefer it. It doesn't bother me. That tapioca is a can't miss. Brings me back to the Bronx when I was growing up, and particular favorite of mine. So anyway, I wanted to make sure I got this episode done and out. There's a lot of technical stuff that has to go on before you tape things, and I'm going to bring this over to the editor, and I want to get it back out on the air. I'm shooting for this show to try to get maybe 1 to 2 shows in a month, and I want older firefighters, new young firefighters, people that love to cook, restaurant owners, restaurant people, recipe people, food people to tune in. It isn't set in a New York City firehouse, which gives it some of its appeal. But I want it to be a cooking show, and I want to teach younger firefighters not to give up the tradition of firehouse meals, sitting, eating, and dining together. And the same with the older firefighters. You're retired, you're sitting home. Welcome into my firehouse. I hope you feel comfortable and safe in here. Kind of reminds you of when you were on the job, like me too. I just want to keep that tradition alive and bring family, friends, firefighters around a kitchen table together. And this is one in particular that you can make that everyone will love. So again, for American Firehouse Cuisine, I'm going to use the New York Fire Department expression, take up. It's time for us to take up, and God bless.